All right, fellas. Man, I'm thrilled about this conversation today. I've got my brother Brent Perkins here, and I'm going to lead with this. His website is papercutssuck.com. And by the end of the show, that'll all make sense.
Yeah.
The most important part of this bio that I think is that he is a father of two amazing women, two amazing girls, 19 and 15. And when Brent is not with his kids, he is a seasoned CEO. He is for sure a family man with a business, not a businessman with a family. Formerly the president and CEO of Nuraxin, a global biotechnology manufacturing and design firm. I love the way that sounds. Over 7 years with that company, he built a team and culture with a focus on integrated software and hardware systems. I see a lot of parallels to the business world and our human world, right? Of integrated software and hardware, high fidelity data and exceptional customer experiences. After a difficult divorce in 2021, Brent's life shifted. And today we're talking because I want to dig into the story of not only the most challenging pieces of that, of his life at home, but how that journey and his commitment to his growth really shifted his experience of life. And that's what we're getting into today. What happened and what he did about it. One thing I know about Brent that keeps him grounded is his routine, his personal care focus. So he hikes, he bikes, he runs, he swims. Every week he's doing yoga, he's meditating. In fact, you're meditating, Brent, with people in the community. I know that's part of how you collaborate with other FRD brothers, which is really cool. I was talking with Eric the other day and he's like, yeah, I've got this weekly meditation with Brent that we're doing. And I was like, that's so cool. And he's constantly learning, which one of our core values in Front Row Dads is curiosity. You are, in my opinion, Brent, exactly who we want to include in this brotherhood, which is men who have wisdom, who are wise enough to know there's more to learn. Brent has been a Front Row Dad brother since June of 2022. And over the last 6 months specifically has given an immense amount of time and expertise. And he's brought his experience to help strengthen what we call our band program. So for anybody who's newer to this podcast or those guys out there that aren't brothers yet to the brotherhood, the band is a small group of men, usually 6 to 8 guys who meet regularly to have deep and meaningful conversations. These groups, because of the consistency of those meetings, because of the intentionality and how they're set up, now thanks to Brent and Eric and other people that have contributed to this, that ultimately these are rooted in trust and transparency in such a way that I often hear people say after they join a band that they go, I've had deeper conversations in one meeting, one day with these guys than I've had with some of my best friends over the last 10 years of my life. I've shared things I've never shared. I learned things about myself I've never learned. I identified blind spots, and I'm able to now move forward in a more powerful and solid way for myself and my family and my community, etc. So the guys in our community deeply respect Brent for a number of reasons, but one is that he is an example of how we show up to community, which is that you give more than you take. That if you show up to serve, if you show up to provide value, if you bring the best of you to any community, usually the response to that is pretty remarkable in how people want to pour back into you in your life. And that's just the way it works. It's a beautiful energy exchange. And I love how Brent has shown up. So Brent, thank you. And thanks to all the guys out there listening today to this, what is going to be an awesome conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
And the last thing I want to say here, by the way, before we get into this so that men know where we're going, is some of the things that I know are included in this book that you've written is things that like headlines that popped out to me. The Art of Self-Delusion. I want to lead with that in just a moment. I want to talk about why you wrote, this is a love story, or really it's a story about who we don't love. Things like blissful ignorance. And rooted in all of this is your life experiences of, like we said before, the divorce and the business and being a dad and all the things that encompass life. and what it means to surrender and what it means to be in community. We're going to navigate and traverse a bunch of stuff here. I'm really excited about it. So are you ready, my brother?
Yeah, it sounds like you set us up for about 8 hours of conversation.
That's right. Which, by the way, I think over the course of time, we have much more than that in our future. So this will be like part one. We'll open up something here, which would be great.
Perfect.
Let's begin with the art of self-delusion. What is that?
It's an interesting concept that deserves a little bit of time setting it up, because it gets to the core of us understanding that we have choice in life. So let me back up from there. The reality we live in, this world, is full of real objects, but each of us experience them differently because as humans, we have our five senses. And you like different food, like to do different things than I do, because our senses are inputting from our hearing to our smells to our taste to our feelings differently. And that's how we experience the same real physical objects. So our experiences are different, and we can change the interpretation of that experience from one day to the next, 2 years from now, looking back, because we've learned something different. So as we're interpreting our experiences, those become our truths. We lock those in, it becomes our story, and we put it away, and that's how we, are filling this chamber in our brain that's creating this web of who we are. And if we've got the ability to change that, how can it be a truth unless a truth is really a delusion? And I guess I missed the part that our interpretations are really an illusion, because if something is not as it seems, it's an illusion. And if you are seeing it differently than I'm seeing it, then it's an illusion. So my interpretation of it, which can change, if I can hold two truths right here and today choose my left-hand truth and tomorrow my right-hand truth, it's just a delusion. So I argue that delusions don't have to be bad. We just need to realize we're artists, and that we can embrace the art of self-delusion in a positive way and flip that narrative and that script and take the power back, the power of choice.
Do you agree with the statement, on the opposite side of a truth is another truth?
That's exactly why I frame it as they're all delusions, just in the most positive way possible.
I used to see so much of like what's true and what's a lie. And then I started playing with that, on the opposite side of a truth is another truth. And now I see, just walking through the day and experiencing what are perceivably a lot of truths for a lot of people. And then asking at the end of the day, when I have all these possibilities, I look at it like a Venn diagram, and like what overlaps is like my core. That's what I describe as my core, or my core truth, which is really a story. And the fact that I think there's a story is in and of itself a story.
Well, and how many times have you gotten home from, say, working out with your friends, and something happens, you get irritated, and you've locked it in, you're frustrated, you're upset, like you interpreted an experience you had a certain way, and you go home and Tatiana's reframes something for you, and you go, oh, something clicks, it shifts, and your truth shifts, sometimes 180 degrees.
That's right.
Still your truth.
It's amazing to look back on what I believed to be true in my 20s or my 30s. And I don't look back with shame that I believed it then, because my self today, it has evolved to these beliefs. I look at it as like it was just all part of the journey. But I'm incredibly blown away by how much it shifted. And then I'm very interested to see, what do I believe today that 20 years from now will have completely shifted also. That's fascinating. But that gives hope to blind spots, and why having brothers around you to show you different ways to approach life, modeling, hey, you could approach it this way or think this way and still achieve a result, expands our possibilities. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what you just said, and no, we'll get into this later, is the basis to be able to showing up in surrender. Once we realize what that epiphany you had, which is, I used to think this way, now I think this way, what am I going to think? And we can't get there until we start to let go of control.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can tie into a couple things because I like going there now with the art of surrendering. So let's talk a little bit about, let's talk about one of the most important moments, I think, as I see it, and this is my story, of course, of your recent life was your divorce.
Yeah.
And I know you talk about that. I would love to dig into that, of take us into what was challenging through that period of life. And because I'm guessing that surrendering part of that experience.
Yeah, it was the ultimate wake up call to, it was my choice. What do I blame it all on my partner and make her out to be the bad guy and I'm the victim here, or where's my role? Where did I show up or didn't do it? Where did I not show up? And to look at it in a way and see what it was doing to my family and my daughters and all the pride I put into modeling certain behaviors being thrown out the window in the midst of this thing happening. Yet at the same time, knowing that if I didn't do this, then I wouldn't have held true to what I knew was needed at my core. So it's this blend of all these emotions and feelings and so much confusion, yet Ryan Holiday has said it perfect. The only way forward is through it, or the only way around that obstacle. And it's so painful at the time, yet surrendering is actually incredibly beautiful once you get there. And for
Can
me,
I
it's
ask you a question about surrendering when it comes like the nuance of it for you? I think about, I've wrestled with how I define surrender from like the storm is coming, and surrendering is like, I'm just going to stand here and let the storm overtake me. I'm going to be covered with rain. I'll be exposed to the elements. The other one is like, I have choice to go find shelter. How much do I stand in what I think is uncomfortable and let it wash over me versus how much do I then look to control my surroundings with what I can control? How do you see the nuance of like, where is the will of man and the choice that we have bumping up against just throwing up your hands and going, I submit, or I'm not going to try to control all this. I'm going to enjoy this. In fact, I'm going to find the light and love within what maybe I told myself is a bad situation.
There are a lot of nuances, and part of it comes down to it's easy to actually step into victimhood when you're surrendering. Like, oh, there's nothing I can do. I'm just here. I'm just showing up. And that's not surrender. That's victimhood. That's playing the victim. So you have a singular power in your life, and that is over choice, and is over choice for you. That is really the only true power we have in our life. And as you're making decisions, as you're showing up, you're choosing consciously. It's at that point where you start to step into elements that are outside of your control, where the surrender piece comes in. And you show up in a way that brings the pieces you can control and the way you can do it. So you show up in the best way possible, but then you release. You let go of expectations. You let go of assumptions, but you don't set yourself up to get hurt. That's just playing the victim.
And I wonder if there's like it's like the Enneagram, it feels like, where I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. I'm an enthusiast, right? And there's a healthy version of that and an unhealthy version of that. And maybe surrender is the same way, where some of the building blocks might be the same, but it's really whether or not it's an unhealthy or a healthy version. When I'm reactive and I'm surrendering, it's very different than when I'm grounded and surrendering.
Yeah, maybe another way to look at this is the difference between passive surrender and active surrender.
Yeah. That's cool. That's good to explore it. Talk to me a little bit about blissful ignorance. And because you just talked about passive versus active.
Yeah.
It'd be a nice flow into that idea.
Yeah. There is a section of the book called Blissful Ignorance. It happened early on in this. As I was writing the book, I got through most of it and I ended up going down to visit a friend of mine in another city here in Arizona, a long time friend of mine, 20 plus years. And we hadn't seen each other in a while, and we went out to dinner, and he's very successful and has a couple kids and a wife and all the worldly things that you think would make somebody very happy. And as we're talking through things, he looks at me at the end, he goes, "This book sounds really cool, Brent, but I got to be honest, I don't want to read it." And I'm like, it's like, wait a minute, we've just had an hour-long conversation. This is beautiful. We're connecting. You get it. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, honestly, he's like, I love my life. I like my work. I like my wife enough. I like my kids. I love my kids. It's like, but I don't want to find out that I'm a asshole, narcissist, alcoholic. And I was just blown away. And yet I 100% got it, because that was me a year ago. I didn't want to face those truths because things were good enough.
So why do we want to face them? I mean, in some ways, I get it. You know, I think of blissful ignorance. I think about being a child. For the record, I'm asking,
Yeah.
I can argue with myself right now. I could answer my own question,
Sure.
but it's like, is there a part of you that still cherishes blissful ignorance? Is there a part of that you can just embrace and settle into? Or do we need to be in pursuit of the truth? Do we want to be looking in the mirror at all times and trying, like, or maybe what I'm asking is like, is there a balance there too of like, can you overdo it? It's like working out where you're like, more weights, more days. Is looking in the mirror and finding your truth the same, where, hey, a little blissful ignorance is actually healthy?
So yeah, you're correct. So little sidestep. I've done a couple of ayahuasca journeys, and in these plant medicine journeys, I've ran into people who have done 52 visits, or it's now their life. That is not healthy. I don't believe that's healthy. I don't believe only working on yourself and never living life is healthy. And there is a balance. But how many times as a kid did somebody say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I don't know, but good enough is what I'm shooting for. No, right. Everybody wants to be great. That's why books were written, like Daring Greatly. It's part of that pursuit. And in that pursuit is where joy and happiness lies, in little moments along the way. It's not in good enough and then just letting it go.
What do you want to be great at?
I want to be great at integrity. That is something I have not been great at in my life, not all the way.
What does that mean to you?
Integrity for me means 100% honesty, no black, white, or gray lies. It means not spinning stories in my head or justifying or having to defend myself because I feel a certain way. It's just living my truth. It's being me with all the mistakes and problems and imperfections. It's that kind of that Japanese concept of wabi-sabi. There's beauty in imperfection and embracing it.
That like the broken ceramic where they put it back together with gold. Yeah. That's so cool. I love that. Why is the website Papercuts suck?
You know, we're at a point in our world where anxiety and depression are crazy. I've seen it with my daughters. It's insane, and I'm not talking diagnosable anxiety or depression. I'm talking about learned anxiety and depression that we all have. And a lot of it's social media driven, but either way, it's rampant in our society. And so often, and I see this within front row dads and the vulnerability of these men when they get real about it, and outside of it with men and women all over the place, where we're all seeking, why am I hitting a wall here? Why am I stuck? Why am I at this place I can't move through? Do I need to go practice underneath Buddhist philosophy? Do I need to find another religion? Do I need plant medicine? Do I need just therapy? Help me figure out what it is. Was it a mommy issue, a daddy issue? Maybe, but honestly, it's not one thing. All of this has been death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's the fact that we haven't stepped into and owned this power of choice. So yeah, paper cuts suck, and they might be small and minuscule at the time, but this is the basis to why so many of us are frustrated and stuck and don't know where to go from here, because we're looking for some big answer, and it's in all the little small things. What
are the small things that you do with your girls right now that you feel great about, knowing that you're like, when I do this, I'm a great dad? What are the little things that you're doing to heal or to bond or to have fun, create experiences? I realize that might be tough, by the way, knowing you have a 15-year-old and 19-year-old,
Yeah,
you know, that
there's
in
a
this
lot
season
of,
of
there's a lot
life
of,
that, yeah, there may be a lot of letting go.
there is. Honestly, my focus, especially as they're been in the high school and now college years, has really been around awareness and teaching them to slow down and just be aware. And I didn't understand it at their age. And yet I also see them starting to hear what I'm talking about, which is understanding 99.9% of the time when somebody's being a jerk or frustrating you or not being appropriate, it's about them. It's not about you. And for them to learn that at their age, one, it's insanely difficult, but two, if they can start to not take on the weight of the world in that way, I don't think there's anything else I can inspire them with or help them understand as their coach, which is what I am at this phase of life. Than teaching them awareness of what's happening in the world around them and how it impacts and how it's really interacting with them.
You think they see or feel the change in you? Like, do you sense it? Do they say, man, Dad, you're different this year than you were last year? Do they reflect that in their energy towards you?
I mean, comments like, who the hell are you, Dad? Stuff like that kind of sets the stage for maybe I'm a little different than I used to be a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Tell me, what was it? And what is it now? Like, give us a real example if you can.
Yeah. I mean, I just showed up in this stoic, I'm special. I achieved CEO status for 10 years. Look at me. I know everything. I just solve problems versus now I just show up and I listen. And it's amazing how much empathy men have, even though we're told we don't have it. It's at such a deep grounded level that's very different than the feminine that has blown me away. And bringing that to the table with my daughters has really shifted things. And they open up and they share things that you're like, what? You just told me way too much detail. I didn't want to know that. However, thank you. Thank you for the trust.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the greatest compliments a girl dad could get, right? Yeah. What was I watching? Oh, maybe it was like it was Yellowstone. Did you ever see Yellowstone, the show?
No, but I know
Kevin Costner. He would be like, damn it, Beth, I didn't need to hear that. About his daughter. Oh man, that's funny. Wow. Talk to us a little bit about this line. This is a love story, or really it's a story about who we don't love. Why'd you write that?
So, two reasons. I didn't set out to write a book. You know, there's a lot of people who, I'm going to write a book one day. I'm going to put that in my notes. I should write about that one day. That wasn't me. I never had aspirations to write a book. I didn't have a topic. This all kind of divinely got put on me at the end of 2022, kind of a tap. And the title was given to me through one of my meditation sessions. And I rejected it. I didn't want it. And what turned out was, because I had no content for it, I didn't have this lifelong development of these things, although I did. Once I got into it, I realized it really was about my life. I spent 90 days doing research and interviewing people and pulling together all this content. And it was my journey. The book was my journey. It wasn't just about me sharing it. It was this fast forwarding, because I finally showed up in surrender. I was open. As I got 10 years of downloads, like I plugged into the matrix and up leveled to this insane degree over the 3 to 6 months, I was writing this book. So as I look back, it really was a story to myself. It's why I wrote in the dedication, although it sounds a little narcissistic, that this I dedicated it to myself. And I go on to explain that it's because I can only impact me. And if I impact me in the best way possible, it might impact you. That's all I can hope for. It was actually a front row dad that said, dude, this is the most epic love story you've written to yourself. And I'd never thought of it that way.
That's cool. I hear that. And I've been saying this every chance I get, because I think it's so important. At our last retreat in Park City, we've I'm telling this to anybody who, by the way, is new to the Front Row Ag community. At these retreats, which are typically about 50 guys, they vote, all the men in the room vote on one guy who really showed up, powerfully present, contributing to the room. He'd done the work for him, on himself for the months leading up to the retreat, of course, and then brought all of that work and development, just like you said, right? And maybe that impacts everybody. Well, it does. And Mike Wagner was voted MVP. And Mike said, he said, it was actually Kelly Flanagan, one of the guys in our group, who told me the story about Mike earlier in the day. He said, the question for Mike was, what's changed? Why so much growth? And Mike said, I'm doing the same stuff I've always done, except this time I'm doing it because I love myself, not because I'm trying to fix myself. And I thought that was beautiful. So all the practices that he had been doing, all the work, all the conversations, all the books, all the whatever it is, right? All the stuff. In the past, Mike would have told you it was to fix himself. There was like an embedded shame, or right. There's trying to redeem himself through this process. And now he's doing these things because he honors himself, because he loves himself. I can say, Brent, my contribution to this would be, I don't think I ever really got in my body, in my soul, in my heart, what it meant to love yourself until this year. And I'm 47. And I bet you that when I'm 67 or 77, I'm probably talking about an evolution of that as well. But I do think I had a lot of my contribution, even like with me and Front Row Foundation that started, almost 20 years ago. I think I started that charity in a way just to sort of like make up for the bad things that I had done, or how I was trying to like get even, if you will, like balance out the karma of the universe type of thing, or earn love. It was coming from a place of not feeling worthy enough. So I'm going to do these things so people will tell me I'm a good person and that I'll love myself more. And I'm not mad at myself for having done that way, but I'm realizing now that my moves I'm making more today are out of a place of love and not coming from I don't love myself, so I'm going to do this so you tell me you love me, and then I'll start to fill my cup.
Yeah.
And there's a slight little hint of like, I don't even want to say that out loud on the podcast, because it does start, like what you said, right? I don't know how you said it, but it's like, could it be narcissistic? Could you, but the truth, it's like, that's great modeling, man. It's wonderful that you do that. And if somebody responds and goes, yeah, you're a fucking asshole, Brent, like you are then the truth is that's them bumping up against their boundary. It's probably them feeling like it's actually their like inner self going, I wish I could do that. And I can't, and I don't want to look at it. So I'm going to poke at Brent.
It's them seeing the narcissist that they don't like in themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And by the way, John, talked to a lot of guys, and a lot of them have a lot of respect and compliments for you. And never once have they ever said, I like John because he started a charity.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Isn't that fascinating? I love my learning around that space right now. Brent, talk to me about.
I want to say one more thing about this.
Please.
That it's so often, because I feel the same way. We talk about who we were, what we've done in the past, and I use words like you, which is I don't shame myself. I don't have any guilt, and I just want to throw it out there that if we didn't have those experiences, we wouldn't be where we're at, who we are today. So there's zero shame and guilt ever. We just don't repeat it. We just don't go back to it. It's all part of that lesson in the most positive. Like I am thankful for the moments I was an asshole.
Yeah.
Because it made me wise and aware to who I am now.
Yeah. Brent, what do you want the book to do, man? How do you want it to impact the world? I know that this is, and I say that recognizing what you've said about this being your journey, your process, that you dedicated it to you. This was something maybe you needed to do. But when you think about you got a text message this morning. Great. By the way, we don't have to say who it's from. It might be fun to read that. I don't know. What do you think? Should we read?
Yeah, we can read it. That,
Love bringing real shit into the fold like this, because this happened this morning. You texted me this.
um,
You want me to read it?
yeah, go ahead.
Um, so the message from one brother to you: I have no points to make today, only to let you know that this book will indeed make a difference. Up to page 112 and a perfect pause with that thought above to reflect upon. Your response: damn, thank you, brother. This means a lot, especially as I step into my podcast with JV in about 90 minutes. And then he writes, what a great container for space and conversation. Two humble men seeking to learn, seeking to share, and pouring their hearts to help others in the journey. And in this journey, we should all focus on ... And then, dude, you mentioned that, that had you in tears. That's what I'm talking about, where if men or women or whoever, by the way, I say men often because of course, we're leading a men's group here, but any human who finds your book and reads it, if they send you a letter, if they send you a note, what makes your heart beam? What does that letter say? What is it? What are they reflecting back to you? What are you hoping that you've modeled enough where they get it? You're like, oh, that person got it. Is there something like that you have that you're dreaming about, holding on to?
There is. I need to give a little bit of context because I don't think what's evident to people who don't know me yet is that I actually stepped out of being a CEO and haven't made any money in the last 8 months. So I took this about face change to write this book, stepped out of a career, didn't plan on it, and have put everything, all of my time and effort into this. And I don't know where it all goes and comes from here, but as of course, there's people who are nervous for me and projecting their own fears onto me, and I'm having to just acknowledge but push it away and stay in my truth, stay in integrity with myself. My answer when, what do you want out of this, has been, if only one person says this changed my life, then I've done my job. And that's the first person that's told me it's changed their life. So today I realized I did my job.
That feels good. And then beyond that, is that the surrendering piece?
The entire experiment has been surrendering, showing up every single day, not freaking out, not worrying, not bringing, trying to control, what should I do next? How should I be doing this? Should I go get a bartending job to bring money in to do? No, it's like, no, I'm showing up. I'm allowing experiences to happen. I'm going to meet people. I'm going to do things that are uncomfortable. I'm just going to ask questions, take things where they go. And it's just been amazing, the doors that have opened up. And to put a cap on what you asked, this isn't a new story. It's not a new topic. It's a different angle on something we've probably all heard before, which is why it's familiar yet kind of interesting to dive down this topic. I hope the book gives people permission. I hope it gives them permission to explore themselves in a way they never have, because I don't feel like I had that permission in my life.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Let me see if I can build a bridge here. I want to talk about the impact that you're making within the community. This is real. This is happening right now. Was it yesterday or the day before you led a band training and you're like, it's 3 hours. I was like, dude, thank you so much for contributing your time. This was like the 4th band that you had launched, right? So you go in and you host these meetings, you do the trainings. You guys built the whole manual around this. I mean, this is like a beautiful manual, by the way, like 30-page manual on how we run our bands. It's awesome. A lot of thought, a lot of intentionality. And then you were talking to me about how you feel very privileged to be in that space of learning the depths of these men, right? You're learning about them and their lives and connecting with them in a way that is very unique to the Brotherhood. You're in a unique position.
Yeah.
Right. And it's awesome. But it's a lot of work. Like you've poured into this Brotherhood, and there are stats that back this up too. Like working with Rachel, that we had, I don't know what it was, 20% of our guys were in bands when you got a hold of it with Eric and Rachel and started working on this. And now it's like 50% of the members are in bands, which is amazing. And like we built out this whole thing. online in our vault. We call it the vault, where we hold all the good stuff. And that now people can see who's in whose bands. They can apply to be in bands. Like, it's legit. All right. Now that's one piece of it. And I wanted to create context for everybody listening that you've come in and done that. How has writing the book, how has your evolution as a man, the clarity that it takes to put your heart on paper, how has that impacted your contribution in the Brotherhood with the bands? How do those blend together or tie together? How has one impacted the other, or vice versa?
Man, I don't think I would have been able to lead bands without this journey I've gone through in the last 6 months. Even though part of the reason I stepped into helping out with Eric and Rachel was I was in Vistage, which is a CEO kind of mastermind group, and they had some of the structure we brought in from there, and YPO and some other organizations, but nothing like the vulnerability that Front Row Dads as an organization, and really you, John, bring to the table. So, and meshing them together, having imposter syndrome is real. But I don't have it with these bands. I have it around my book, although it's getting better every day. But with these bands, I don't anymore, because I can honestly show up in a way that we were leading a group yesterday where they were struggling to get vulnerable. And I did something that society probably wouldn't want us to do. I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about it. What religion are you? Sweet. Now let's get into it. What does that mean to you? And we broke down these walls, and we had, a couple guys that, followed, they were Jewish, and one guy was Methodist, and another guy was an atheist, and another guy was a Buddhist. And as you brought down these walls and we started talking about it, like, none of that mattered. And it just cleared away immediate barriers where we just got to become men and fathers again. And it's getting to this level where we start to peel away these labels and this framework that doesn't truly matter when it comes down to supporting other humans. And being able to be part of that and facilitate it, and then see it, and knowing that, like, those men yesterday have never, ever been in a group where they had such diversity, yet we all talked about it in the most honest way and respectful way.
Yeah. Dude, I remember, at the beginning of, was 2020. So to put a bookmark in that year, right? It was 2020. And there was all of this incredibly disrespectful conversation happening online. People arguing, playing the victim, being critical, being rude. And then in our community, people are literally talking about the things that are difficult. They're talking about a vaccination as an example. And they're having like a really positive conversation. Some guys who are vaccinated, some guys who aren't. They're back and forth, talking, sharing. I hear you, and somebody chimes in at the end and they're like, holy shit, like, this is why I joined the Brotherhood. Like, this is a conversation that's not happening anywhere else in the world, with love and respect of difference of opinions. And nobody's trying to cancel the other person, and just hearing each other. And I know that period of time allowed for our Brotherhood to really amplify or deepen who we are. And who we are men that, yeah, we're all different. We're all different, really different. Like you said, a bunch of different religions in this group. People ask me all the time, like, is it religious based? And I'd say people with religion are welcome in our group. And those who may not practice have a religious practice are welcome in our group, and we can all learn from each other. Our group is about you finding the best version of you and bringing that to the table. And that's what you're doing. And sometimes we need to nudge it like that. Just like you said, I love that you did that, Brent. I did that at the retreat too. I was like, all right, after about 24 hours, like, time to get real. And I nudged him. I told him a personal story, and I go, we're not here to tell topical bullshit stories, guys.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that, man. Yeah. It's, and somebody out there listening might be like, I'm not ready for that. And I go, okay, well, I mean, I would challenge that. Maybe you are. Maybe that's a story you're telling yourself. What's that?
Blissful ignorance.
Yeah. Yeah. We could play that. You could play that card if you want all the way until you take your last breath.
Yeah.
We can also try to have some real conversation and live epic lives that we know intuitively we want. We want that truth. We want that integrity. Brent, tell me a little bit about, let's zoom in to like what's coming up right now for you. What's on the horizon? What are you looking forward to? What are the next 90 days look like in your world? What are your actions? What are you going to go do in the world?
So there's a lot of surrender. It's going to be involved in the next 90 days. Because as we're recording this, the book's in the final stages of editing, and it's set to launch, probably soft launch late July, early August, and then a month later for a hard launch. So I'm doing it all self-publishing. So figuring out, what does that look like? What do I want out of it? Do I go back to a career in the corporate world? Honestly, I can't do that. I already know the answer to that. So yet I also am not called to go spend 100 days a year on the road, speaking and just being a life coach. That's not my calling specifically. So it's surrendering that this is part of that. How do I show up and share with people like yourself, this community, other communities, give back in a way that the doors will open, and I will show up actively, but I will also surrender to what directions life can take me, because I didn't expect this left turn. I know there's a lot more left turns.
Yeah. So it'll be available on Amazon. You said July, August?
Yeah.
Cool. It's exciting. Are you going to do an audiobook?
I am.
Okay. Where are you recording that?
You're looking at it.
Awesome. You're going to do this. That's beautiful. That's cool. I'm really happy for you, Brent. And I know the brothers in FRD are happy for you. And I hope that, I'm just thinking about when we'll officially launch this. So it will be, when is it available for pre-order on Amazon? Do you know that date?
I don't, but the Papercuts Suck website will allow people to sign up for our launch team.
Great. Go there.
Yeah.
That's the website, guys. Papercutssuck.com. Love that title. And I'm super grateful for our conversation today, Brent. This has been really enjoyable to spend a little time with you. Is there anything that you want to say? And I'm two parts. Okay. One is to anybody listening in general, anything that hasn't been said, you want to say to everybody. And then the second thing, if you can, is anybody that's thinking they need a community of men. They resonate with the family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. Can you speak to your experience with Front Row Dads to give somebody light into who we are and what this is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, showing up in surrender is the singular message. And there's a lot of more to unpack there, but getting there, because it's a journey to get there, for me started with really understanding where I didn't have boundaries in my life. So I would challenge those out there that aren't very confident in their own boundaries to really take a look at what that means in their life. Because it all starts there. Once you start really framing healthy boundaries in your life, everything else becomes possible. So I would challenge to start there. In terms of groups, I am just continued to be blown away by Front Row Dads, although I will say it's not some magic group. You get out of it what you put into it. If you just show up to the once a month meetings and listen to your podcast, it's great. It's good. It's good enough. But if you lean into the chats we have on Telegram, which is the medium we use to all chat with each other, or Facebook, if you call other members, the community here is so strong, is so giving. And as men specifically, speaking for myself, it's so easy to give and it's so hard to receive. Yet, one of my favorite, I don't know who to attribute this quote to, is that when we fail to receive, those amazing feelings that we get that well up in us, that make us just feel wonderful when we give, we just stole those from somebody else. We robbed them from being able to have those feelings. So being able to receive is just as important as being able to give. And I think that is something we need to allow ourselves to understand.
Yeah.
And this community does a great job at that.
Well said. Well, gentlemen, hope you enjoyed this conversation today with the one and only Brent Perkins. The book, you should check it out. You should go to papercutssuck.com and you should enter your email. You should go buy the book when you hear this, and it's on Amazon. And guys, you're invited to check out Front Row Dads if you're looking for a community of men that will help you to level up, that will help you to serve as a father, as a husband, and as a business owner, and to do it all with excellence. Then this is the community perhaps for you. And if not, go find the community that it is for you, because we are not supposed to do this alone. And I believe in the phrase, community is the greatest survival tool. So if you want to, create an epic life for you, for your kids, for your spouse, find your amazing community. And there's the one that you might be living near, and there's the one you can create, without geographical boundaries. And you can expand yourself around the world. Front Row Dads is, operating in 15 different countries now. And so excited to have unique men, committed men with integrity join this group. And just maybe, you'd find yourself on a call with Brent Perkins one-to-one. Who knows?
Hopefully.
Just maybe. All right, guys. Thanks so much for being here. Brent, thanks again for being our guest. And have a great day, guys.